Hello and welcome to CLEA'S World. I am Clea and today I will be sharing with you more of the information I received from the 25th dimension during my last BQH, Beyond Quantum Healing hypnosis session. Before we move forward, I'd like to ask you to please subscribe to my channel, give this video a thumbs up, and please do leave me a comment below to let me know if the stuff resonates. I love hearing from you. I respond to every comment. I just love that we have a really great community that's formed under these videos because many of us do have questions about what's going on out there. And this is somewhat of a safe space, still YouTube, but it's somewhat of a safe space for us to talk openly, whereas we might not be able to approach these subjects with people around us in our daily 3D life. All right, so I'm going to be reading from a transcript. When I refer to Lorraine, I'm speaking of my hypnotist who is asking me questions I've prepared in advance of the session. And when I speak of me, I'm referring to myself under hypnosis, which means that the answers are coming from the 25th dimension. All right, let's jump in. Lorraine. Okay, you said the tunnel can change the reality for those going through it who believe in it. And she's referring to the tunnel that I've supposedly is one of the 12,000 set up for people to go to New Earth. And we all have different functions. This is not anything special. Everybody here has done something in preparation for the event, this move that we're about to make. So in this particular case, because supposedly it's something I've created, of course, I'm not consciously aware of having done this. I am curious about it, so I wanted to ask. So again, you said the tunnel can change the reality for those going through it who believe in it. How is it going to prepare the people going to New Earth through the tunnel for New Earth? Me. It's not going to prepare them. They're going to believe that it is preparing them. They will feel the change. They will get there with a renewed attitude, with a renewed sense of new beginnings, the new dawn we were discussing. And they're referring to the very opening scene, the opening message they had for us in the beginning of this session. And so that must have been 4 or 5 videos ago. You can check that out if you're curious. They showed us, this particular image, and there was a message behind it. So in that sense, they're going to feel like, all right, this is new. I'm going to put my best foot forward. So it's just in that sense that is going to be helping. The tunnel is not doing anything to them. They're going to assume that the tunnel for each one of them differently. Nobody's the same. Each essence is going to use the tunnel experience as a starting point. And we've discussed this, like it's going to be almost like a separation from the old going to the new, almost like a migration that takes people to a new country. It's like, this is our country now, that kind of thing. Lorraine. Wonderful, thank you. So you told us that on New Earth, we will feel guilty about the stuff we've done because we judge everything, even ourselves. Where does guilt come from? Is this a 3D thing that we have learned here, or does it exist in other dimensions? Me. Guilt comes from the belief in separation. We have guilt because we believe we are separate from certain things. We are supposed to be a certain way. And therefore, when we fall, we literally use words like when you fall into temptation, or you do something that does not match with how you like to think of yourself, because we like to think of ourselves as being just one way. So when we do something that's outside of our very narrow framework of how we judge ourselves, we feel guilty. So guilt is very much a byproduct of the fact that we believe here that we have to be a certain way. Now, this has been programmed into us. We've allowed it to be programmed into us. We have programmed it ourselves. There is no they, right? So to feel, because again, it helps with the separation, guilt very much helps reinforce the fact that you are not everything. You are a limited being. And that you sometimes have low vibration and you're not exactly how you aim to be, how you long to be, how you wish you could be. Because we have this idea that in order to be worthy, meaning, we are flawed. And in order to be worthy, you have to be a certain way. And we even ascribe this to source, even though we said many times that source is not just one way. Source is every possible way. Source is everything. Source is all there is. We are source. Everything is source. And therefore, if this is part of source, if we are part of source, by default, source must be everything. So not just one way. But that's how we play the game of separation. Guilt is just another pretense of separation. It's born from the pretense of separation. Lorraine, thank you. Great. Moving on to the next segment of questions, NPCs. A soul can have poison injected in its human shell and overcome it by its decision not to be affected. We know NPCs don't have a soul or free will. Does it mean that they are more prone to dying from poison and therefore through things like these things? Me. Yes, yeah. The body doesn't do well with low energy, low vibrational inputs. And therefore, yes, the body is very sensitive to certain inputs. I mean, these inputs are negative codes. And what we mean by negative, again, is not judgmental. It just means they can be toxic to the body. We know the bodies don't handle this well, and therefore they are not advisable. But what happens is that an essence might choose to have that experience. And the essence already knows that it's not going to affect it. It just wants to test it, right? The essence can change the outcome, but an NPC without an essence is simply left to being faced with something that is toxic, that has the ability to take it off of its energetic center. And that's why, yeah, it can very much affect NPCs. Anything that is low vibrational enough will affect NPCs much more harshly or much more seriously than an essence. And for those of you who might be watching this video and might not be familiar with what an NPC is a non-player character, which is basically they're referring to the shells, basically the way that we look in a 3D way, our bodies. Most bodies have essences in them, what we refer to as souls from a 3D perspective, but NPCs don't. There are bodies that don't have essence in them. Lorraine, thank you. Also, why do NPCs age and live only about the same amount of time as the rest of us, about 80 years, when time is not real? And it's essences that choose to age and to die when they want to, even though these bodies could last hundreds of years. Me. Yeah, we actually set these bodies up to last hundreds of years. However, through these resets, we decided that the original lifespan was going to be XYZ. And so NPCs, we basically changed the rules for every body. So every NPC as well. So yes, it wouldn't have worked that way that, essences now decided that their bodies were going to only live on average 80 years. But we're going to have these NPCs, these other bodies walking around that look, 20 when they're 300 years old. Obviously, that wouldn't have worked. So when we do these resets, we change the rules for the bodies. Of course, the essence always has to agree. You could live if you wanted to. We've discussed this before. You could live 800 years. You could live thousands of years, but you could live hundreds of years here or look 20 years old the whole time. But no essence is really interested in this. We do want this planet to look a certain way, and we do want longevity, lifespans to be a certain way. So Claire has heard about the fact that this is not even enough time. Like, she read something where a regular cycle, as if there is supposed to be a certain length for a cycle of understanding or finishing up something at a soul level, is 140 years or something like that. And so they were saying, my goodness, we've been so entrapped by the dark here that we don't even finish a whole cycle. You only live to be 60 or 70 years old, maybe even 90, 100. You can't even finish the cycle, so you got to come back. None of that is true. We live the amount of time that we've decided to live. And we decided to only have these experiences in these bodies for a certain amount of time. And then you can come back and do it again. Lorraine, thank you. This is my question. Do NPCs exist on other game boards other than this game board that's going down? Me. Yes, yes, absolutely. Now, there are planets that only have energy bodies on them, so they wouldn't have NPCs like on your Earth. We're not going to have NPCs. But there are planets like the Pleiades, the Andromedans, the whatever, the Arcturians, they have NPCs. They're not energetic bodies. For them to come in and to believe in the game, to believe that they are born to some body, to a body, there must be bodies there. And they could be born to bodies that have no essence. Yeah, the game in that sense works exactly the same on many other game boards. Lorraine, what is the purpose? I like to wrap my mind around this. What is the purpose of an NPC form hanging out other than for the essences to pop in and out and experience the game board? Me. There is no other, there is no other purpose. We set these up as shells for us to come into. So the purpose is to allow the essences to pretend. So it's almost like having costumes and you're going to be playing or having a recital, or you're going to be acting in a play and you go and pick up the costumes so that you can forget who you are. If we're pretending we're doing Romeo and Juliet, you'll have all your period costumes. And so you can get yourself into that space and forget about everything else. It's the same thing we do with these NPC bodies. They are bodies. They're costumes almost. They're shells. It doesn't mean that we do not respect them or do not appreciate them, but they are simply shells. Lorraine. So we're referring to these as non-player characters, but are there a lot of non-player characters that just exist because the essence has chosen to exit and they don't want to come back? How many of them are just here without an essence? Me. So we discussed in the beginning when we first started connecting and answering these questions that there were 2 billion people on this planet, 2 billion bodies on this planet, and 300 million of them are non-player characters. So we like to keep spare bodies there for essences to walk around or to come into. We're not talking about children, being born here and staying, committing to a body. And so, and I'm sorry, was the question specifically that you wanted answered, Lorraine? I believe you answered it. I think my confusion is that they're just like visiting essences can come into the 300 million. There are just extras hanging around just for a specific experience for a limited period of time. Me. Yeah. And we use them also for monitoring reasons. Sometimes people come in either from other planets to see what's going on or to see, if they're doing a job, like they're getting information or whatever it is. So it's not just for fun necessarily. Of course, it's all fun, right? The point of being in the matrix is fun, but it's also what we would consider even duties. Like, for example, watchers sometimes, if they're not embodied, they will come in and walk around and see what's going on firsthand. So it's not just a curiosity necessarily. All right, I'm going to stop here, but I do want to tell you before I go that there were 300 million NPCs when we started connecting, and this happened my first session was last August 2021. And then I started posting these videos. I want to say the end of November or beginning of December, I don't remember. And since then, we have a lot more NPCs here because of the third group of people having gone to the 3D chamber, and leaving behind their bodies. So this is, there's even more of that right now. But they are just referring to the setup we had for this planet when we decided to basically have this game. And the setup was that we were 1.8 billion people with 300 million spare bodies, which again are used for all kinds of reasons. And so that's just the way we like to do it. But we're not going to have any of these on New Earth because our bodies are not going to be like they are here. They're going to be, we're projecting ourselves there. So anybody who's coming to New Earth will just project themselves there. They won't have to pretend they're being born from a body, from somebody's body. All right, so thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you soon in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.